Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to January's edition of VRM Insider. I hope that everybody is having a fantastic day today. We're going to just kind of pause and give everybody a few minutes to jump into the room. I hope that wherever you are, the weather is fine and sunny this beautiful January day. I know Scott and Julie and I, all three, are in North Carolina. They're in the Piedmont portion of the state, and I'm over on the East Coast, but it is a gorgeous day for January. So again, welcome everyone to January's edition of VRM Insider. And this webinar is titled Exciting New Data Tools from Your Software Provider, VRM, and our amazing friends over at LSI Tools. And today we are going to be diving in to some specifics about a very, very exciting new piece of material that we are going to be offering at VRM to every single one of our clients. And today, Scott and Julie are going to tell us about that. So first, I just want to introduce our guests for today. You've seen them on VRM Insider before. This handsome gentleman, that's Scott Leggett. For those of you who don't know Scott, he has been with LSI for 4 years, which pretty much makes him a veteran. But before that, he was actively involved in the vacation rental space as a VP of a company over on the Outer Banks. He is actively involved in both VRMA and North Carolina VRMA, and was even past president of the NC VRMA. But he was chairman of more boards than I could ever rattle off. So we appreciate Scott's 25 years of dedication and commitment to this beautiful industry and space that we all get to work and play in. And beside him is Julie Bryant. Julie is been with LSI for a year, but in that year, she has done tremendous work there. She is responsible for much of the support that happens, and most of our clients, you will depend on her in one way or the other. You may not know that you're depending on her, but you are. Our development team and their development team has been hard at work to present something to you today. So I just want to give Scott and Julie an opportunity to say hello and good afternoon, and then we're going to dive right in. So Scott, Julie, welcome to January's edition of VRM Insider.
Well, thank you, Tracy, and thank you to everybody for taking some time out of your afternoon here. We are very excited about bringing these tools and partnering with VRM. And probably the most exciting piece of news for you guys today is that we're going to talk about one of two big data analytic tools that we're partnering with VRM on, but neither of them are going to cost VRM clients anything. They're going to be free tools built directly right into VRM, as you'll see here in a few minutes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your time today and seeing our exciting new tool, VRM Market Insights, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Wonderful. Well, we are going to in just a second, dive right into a few slides, because like I said, we have a lot of ground to cover, because what today is actually is some training. So we're actually going to give you training on this new tool that as soon as we're done here today, you'll be able to go ahead and log into your admin console and gain access to. So what we want to do first is I just want to do a little housekeeping. First of all, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A button. That may be at the top of your screen or at the bottom of your screen, just depending on how your screen is laid out. And then if you have a question and it's appropriate for where we are in the presentation, we'll go ahead and jump right on it. If not, then we'll save those for the end and we'll make sure we cover them for you. All right. And Julie, if you want to say something next time, we just had Jonathan at VRM. I'm so glad he's here today. He said just lean in towards the microphone a little bit closer. We had trouble hearing you that last time, so just get a little bit closer to the mic. All right, so I am going to go ahead and share my screen. And what you're seeing is something that should look very, very familiar to each and every one of you, and that's the VRM admin console. This should be something that you probably dream about and see in your sleep at night. We have built VRM market insights directly into the admin console. And the way that you're going to see that is straight from your main screen. You're going to go down to analytics, and then you're going to click on market insights. And once you click on market insights the very first time, what you're going to see is this screen right here. And this is just an acceptance of terms of use. And you will go down to the bottom and you will click on that little box and then click on the accept terms and conditions button. Once you have done that, the hard part is over. There might be a little bit of wait at this point in time. So what it's going to say next is you're going to have a screen and it'll say that we're loading your data. So we're going to be pulling your data over to Insights, to VRM Market Insights. And it's going to tell you that it's still working on that. And it could take up to 24 hours. It could be a few minutes. It could be up to 24 hours. And then if you go back to your screen and look at it, it'll either tell you that it's done and you'll be able to see what the screen's going to look like here just in a second, or it'll say that it's still working on it. Did I get all that right, Scott and Julie?
Yeah, you did. The reason that that'll take a little time is because we're not just pulling your current data, we're pulling your historical data so that you can get a sense of year-over-year performance, pacing, trending, those kind of things.
Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Scott and Julie are going to pull up their screen. So you're going to see what VRM Market Insights actually looks like. So as soon as they're ready, they'll pull that up. I'll give them just a second.
All right.
And this is what you guys are going to see. And they're going to go through with us and tell us what VRM Market Insights is, why you need to be using it on a regular basis, why you need to educate yourself and familiarize yourself, and why your data is so important specifically to you. So what we're looking at is that, you're in markets that there's competition.
Where do you see?
And there's Linnell. Linnell's coming in to get some tech help. Thank you, Linnell.
Here. We're sharing. We're not sharing this one. Which one are you sharing, Scott?
That one. The one.
This one here?
That's displaying right now.
This one right here.
Yes.
You got it. There we go. We'll move this over here so you guys don't have to watch all that.
There we go.
All right.
Thank you. And that, folks, right there is what you will see the next time when you log in to VRM Market Insights and you are seeing your data for the first time. So Scott and Julie, take it away.
All right. Well, the first view that you're seeing here is what we call the dashboard view. It's basically a summary of all of the metrics that we're looking at. So in this view, you're looking at your entire inventory and comparing it against the local market's entire inventory. Later on, we'll be able to show you how you can sort that so you can compare certain segments of your inventory to the market inventory by bedroom, by location, by amenities, those sort of things. So in this view, though, we begin with the dashboard view. And we have just a little background here first. These kind of metrics have been used in other industries for a long time. The vacation rental space has been a little bit slow to move this direction. There are a lot of reasons and impediments that have been in the way of doing that, but most of those have been erased now. So the mechanisms to gather this information is probably the most important element that is opened up, because now most of the softwares are cloud-based and we are able to connect to the databases through APIs. And so we can pull this data automatically. And so we're pulling the data directly through APIs. There's no opportunity for the data to be corrupted. So you're seeing actual true data that is pulled directly through the participants' PMS systems. In your case, VRM, but there are lots of other PMS systems that are also participating in this. So we're pulling data from every participant in your market, regardless of what PMS system they're using. So in this for this session today, we're using a demo version of this. A company one of the companies that we work with has allowed us to use their data as a demo as long as we don't identify them. So this is real data. It's being pulled in real time. The data is pulled through the API on a daily basis. And so these reports are updated every single day. So you're seeing it pretty close to real time. The first metric that we're looking at here is paid occupancy. And just to explain a little bit about the layout here, when you're looking at this, you would be looking at it and you would be demo company A. In other words, you're looking at your own company's data in this blue box here and comparing it to the rest of your local market here in the yellow box. We've put these little visual indicators here with the arrows to show where you're either performing ahead or behind the market. And you can see in this case, the demo company at 69.1 compared to the local market at 67.7 is outperforming it by a couple of percentage points. And so it gets the green up arrow. The next category that we look at here is we want to show you a truly accurate picture. So we want to show you what's off market at any time, because if you're looking at paid occupancy and you look at that percentage at 69.1, you probably think you have 31% of your inventory still available. Well, we all know that that's never really accurate, because there's certain parts of our inventory that are off market at any point in time simply because they're owner occupied, there's maintenance blocks going on them. The owners just haven't scheduled them for availability during certain periods. Whatever it may be, this off-market category covers all those scenarios where it's not available for rent. And then we show you what's truly available. So in this case, the demo company has a little bit more availability than the by less than a percentage point, but still a difference there from the local market. So it gets a red arrow there because it's underperforming a little bit in availability because it has more available. We then show those metrics here in graphs just for people who are visually oriented, so that you can at a glance determine how you're doing and comparing to your local market. So you're always going to be the blue line. Your company's going to be the blue line. The yellow bars are reflecting what the local market's performance are. You can see as I'm floating my mouse over each of these areas that there's a little pop-up there that gives you exactly what those percentages are, so that you're not having to shift your eye to the right scale and guess at what that actual percentage is. We've also included a little feature here, these little sliding bars on this, so that you can expand or contract the date ranges as you look at those. The next group of metrics that we're going to look at is revenue per paid unit. So what this measures here is how much you're getting on average for each reservation. In this case, you can see the demo company is outperforming the local market pretty significantly. It's getting over $300 more per reservation on average across its entire inventory than the local market. So that may look good at a glance, but That's why we build in the filters that we'll see a little later, because you can, this company may simply have better inventory on average than the local market. So you would expect it to be out getting a higher price on average than the local market. You know, so you can never look at a single metric in isolation and jump to a quick conclusion. You really have to look at all of these in combination and then really break them down by different segments of your inventory. So while this metric measures revenue per paid unit, that means actual reservations that have money on them. In this metric beside it, we're looking at your entire inventory, whether it's rented or not, and looking at the average on a weekly basis here of what the income is. So because you have some, the demo company has some non-rented units, you can see that that takes this number down, but they're still considerably higher, another about $300 per reservation per week than the rest of the market. Now, we've put some little cues in here to help you understand what each of these metrics is, because they're a little hard to memorize at first. So we put this little button here up in the upper right-hand corner, and when you click on it, it explains what the metric you're looking at is, what it's measuring, how it's calculated, how you would use it, and then it gives you an example there of how that calculation was made. Again, the graphs follow the same format as the as we looked at when we were looking at paid occupancy a moment ago.
And Scott, really quick, can you point out again where you went to get the little description box?
Yes, that's up in this right-hand corner right here, this little dot right there. And that'll just drop down for you. And so at any time when you're going through this, you can pull that down to remind yourself exactly how was that calculated. One of the issues that we have in our industry is there's very little conformity in terms of some of the terms that we use. So we'll address that a little bit later too, because each business kind of has its own terminology for even things as simple as descriptions. You know, somebody might call something a home theater and somebody else calls it a media room or a game room. So we don't have conformity. If you were looking at this and you're looking at it for the hotel motel sector, everybody would know what these terms mean immediately, because they all use the same expression. So one of the outcomes that we're hoping for is that we start speaking the same language a little more. Okay. So what we really want to start doing is to get a decent comparison here, is to break this down a little bit further. And what this next metric, revenue per paid room, reports is actually the revenue per paid room per night rented. So in this case, even though this company is outperforming the market in terms of overall revenue for their reservations, they're actually getting less per room by $6 a night than the local market, and that may seem fairly insignificant. You might say, hey, you know, well, we're willing to take $6 a bedroom per night and do a little better in our paid occupancy. Maybe that's our edge. Maybe we're deliberately pricing under the market rate. What I would suggest, though, is that what that really does is indicates the market absorbency. If the market is very close to you, and if we go back here up to the paid occupancy real quickly, basically. You can see they're just less than about a percentage point and a half less in paid occupancy, but they're making more per paid bedroom than you are. And in this case, I happen to know this company, and it is a large company, so this example will seem a little dramatic, but this company has over 600 properties, and it does about 10,000 reservations per year, and they average about 4 bedrooms per property. When you take 4 bedrooms times times seven nights, and then you multiply that times the 10,000 reservations, it actually in this case comes up to almost $1 million in lost revenue if this company were just charging the same thing as the rest of the local market. And where I'd say is you may not be willing to push yourself to be more expensive than the local market, but you don't have to give up $1 million there. Just if you just got to be average, this company would be making $1 million more in gross revenue per year. The next metric beside that.
Can I ask you a quick question? So
Sure,
would that be one of the reasons why VRM clients need to dig in and learn this particular data set is essentially so we're not leaving money on the table at the end of the year, end of the season?
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
It is accurate, and we'll see another metric here in a moment that had a similar consequence for this company that I'll talk briefly about. But this is really to show you where your opportunities are, and there is a tendency to look at this and say, well, the best use of this product or any data product is to set your rates and to see what you should be pricing. And I would say that that's really only one function of it. We'll see in a little bit that there are a lot of other decisions and uses that the data will show you, both from an operational and marketing side, that will help you fine tune your business. And I frequently use an example that running a property management business is often like owning a Ferrari. You know, if you have a Ferrari, you have to continuously be tinkering with every aspect of that to get the best performance out of it. It's not something that you can just leave in the garage and turn on the key when you want to use it. You're always having to tinker with every part of that car. And a property manager that's running efficiently needs to be looking at every part of their operation and every one of these metrics to really be getting the highest performance they possibly can. The revenue per available room, again, takes your entire inventory into account, whether it's rented or not. So it takes all of your rooms, multiplies those by the night rented, and divides that into your total revenue, and it comes up with the $87 here. So this again is taking into account, and that's a metric that is often used in the hotel industry. We don't use it quite as much in the vacation rental industry. It's called RevPAR, but they're looking at revenue per available room. That's again their entire inventory, whether it's rented or not. Our focus and our decision making tends to be more oriented to what's rented and what did it rent for. Okay. The next group of metrics that we look at are the booking metrics, and one of the things that I spend a good deal of time looking at is booking windows, and we'll take a deeper dive at that in a few minutes here. But booking windows are really the way you trend your performance, particularly if you're able to compare it to year over year and other past performances, and to break that out by segments of your inventory, because different segments of your inventory are going to have different demand cycles. Typically, we find that excuse me, larger properties with more amenities have the longest booking window, but they often have to make their adjustments a lot sooner than properties with shorter booking windows. And that's simply because these tend to be larger homes, 5 bedrooms and greater. They have multifamily groups staying in them, and the decision-making window that people have for that is a lot longer than say a 2-bedroom condo or a beach box where somebody only has one family to be concerned about. Typically, those larger homes are multifamily groups, and it takes a lot of coordination to plan those vacations. So not only is the demand for those properties greater because they're great properties, but it's simply because the decision-making cycle really requires those people to make those decisions earlier because of the planning required. So when you're looking at a booking window, and we'll see a little later, the booking window for these larger homes, even though 180 days, when people look at this, they think, wow, that's really great. These homes are booking on average 6 months out. All of that's true. Their larger properties tend to book about 8 months out. And if those large properties are not booked within 60, 90 days of arrival, sometimes even more than that, then the pool of potential renters has shrunk so much, because it's not going to be an impulse buy to rent a $15,000 a week 7-bedroom oceanfront with all the bells and whistles. That's taken a lot of planning. So you'll see a lot of severe discounting can happen on those that the smaller properties aren't as vulnerable to, because people have the ability to make last-minute decisions because there's less money at risk and less people involved in the decision making. Okay. Then we look at average daily rate. You can see this company is outperforming the market again here.
And Scott, can you lean in just a little bit? It's a little hard to hear you when you lean back a little. I'm sorry.
Not a problem. And on the average daily rate, this company is outperforming the local market. Again, a deceptive metric until you really break it down and see where that's occurring, because I think we've already seen that it's highly likely that this company has better than average properties that tend to rent for more anyway. So if they got complacent and said, "Oh, we're renting, we've got a higher daily rate and a higher average rate per reservation, we're doing great." Well, not really. If they're not getting as much per bedroom here, it simply means that they have larger properties here, so they're getting higher rates for them, but they're not really getting as good a yield as the rest of the local market is. We also see here that their average length of stay is a little less than the local market. And this is another one that's easy to ignore, because you're looking at 7.1 days compared to 7.4 days, so that really is a third of a day, 8 hours. So it rents. The local market averages renting 8 hours more than the demo company. And really what we know is that to get to these decimal points, 7.1, 7.4, some of these homes have 2-week rentals occasionally, and that's just what it averages out to. But in between rentals, often there's some there's some days that are open, and there may be a day before arrival where someone has checked out early or had a partial week booking that's available, that the local market's picking up better than this company. And the consequence of just that 1/3 day, and again, you're looking at the 10,000 reservations per year and an average daily rate of $622. If you take that 10,000 reservations and that 1/3 of a day and extrapolate that over a season, it equates again to close to a gross of $1 million over those 10,000 reservations that this company has not picked up if it were performing just to the average of the local market. If they had programs in place that, such as an automated email program that recognized when there was a day open before arrival or a day open after their departure, and sent an email to the people and said, hey, would you like to beat the traffic and get here and start your vacation a day early? The house is available there. They could pick up and get from an average of 7.1 to an average of 7.4 days, and pick up, in this case, because it is a large company, close to $1 million in gross revenue. So just in the two metrics that we've looked at, revenue per room and average length of stay, this company's left close to $2 million on the table. If they were, and all they had to do is perform at average. They didn't have to be beating the market at all. They just had to perform at average in these two metrics. And if you're a smaller company, if you're 20% the size of that, you've still left $400,000 on the table. Okay. We then take all of this information and we put it in a table here, because there are a lot of people who like to see all those things in one place, and we show the date period actually here that I'm showing now, and I should have showed this first. The way you set your date ranges here is you click on this calendar, and we have a lot of preset date ranges depending on what the market is. You can look a year back, you can look at last season, you can look at the next season, you can look at the next, put in a custom range and look at any number of days down to a single day or through several weeks. So you can do that. And what I've chosen to do here is I've taken a look back at the last summer season here for this company, simply because there's a lot of great data in there and it's easy to come to some conclusions there. So we put all that data in these tables here. We show a 16-week summary, and again, we're showing these arrows here, whether they're up or down compared to the market. We're doing that for each of the metrics. And then we start to show a week-by-week performance. In this case, this is just showing the last 2 weeks of that 16-week period, but you can expand that, show the entire 16 weeks, copy that, or export it to an Excel file. The real value in these reports, while this is a great summary and it was always going to help you keep your finger on the pulse of how your business is doing overall compared to the market, to really know accurately how you're doing, you have to know how each segment of your market is performing. So we break all of these reports down into individual reports, and we've broken those down into 4 categories: occupancy, revenue, booking, and geographic information. So if I click on the occupancy here right now, we can take a deeper dive into paid occupancy. Okay, need to reset that default date range there again. This will take a second for this to pull the data here. But you can see this is doing this in real time here. All right, so now we're able to take a look at this, and it's going to default because we haven't clicked on any of these filters yet. It's going to just show your entire inventory, but now we're actually able to sort this by different segments of your inventory. So we're looking at 69.1% occupancy, but you can see as we go through these filters, it's going to change. And I'm going to click on a couple of these right now, and we'll watch that number change, and you'll be able to see how different segments of your property trend. So the 6 bedrooms alone are actually not performing quite as well as the 69% they were getting for the entire inventory, but let's go ahead and add the 7 bedrooms to that as well. And still underperforming that. We're going to pull a couple other here. Let's look at oceanfront, 6 to 7 bedroom oceanfront. We can see the demand on that's jumped. They're into the 70s now. We'll add a private pool to it. And you can see it begins to jump significantly. We're at 78.3 there. And keep in mind, there's a big segment of off market over here too, where owners are in those homes as well. So these homes are probably close to 100% occupied, but this is just reflecting what's paid here. You can see the layout is a bit different here. We're looking at this on a week by week view, and we've shown these color gradations to draw the eye to say, hey, where you're performing exceptionally well and where you're performing less well. So you see the higher percentages are the darker shades of greens. As we start to get into the yellows and reds, the performances are less. When we look at this, you might look at this week here, 5/31/19, and wonder why it's doing so poorly. Well, it's simply because it's associated with Memorial Day. Last year, Memorial Day fell within this week here. This year, in 2019, it actually fell the week before, and so they got a better occupancy and then dropped actually before this May 31st week here. Let's take a look at some of the other reports. Here, we're gonna go to revenue. Let's look at revenue per unit here, and I'm gonna clear some of these filters too here.
And I was going to say that's a pretty neat way that functions, where you can select whichever number of bedrooms, but it's inclusive. So you could do 3, 4, and 5, oceanfront and pet friendly, and then deselect them as you go. That's a really cool feature.
Yeah, so you can literally do any combination, and that's a good time to point out too, is that these filters are different in every market. Obviously, if you're in a ski market, you're not very concerned about how your oceanfront properties are doing. So I'm taking off these filters here, and so that we can show a little bit how things in some other uses for this tool other than just to set rates, okay? Up here, we're looking at a weekly view here. We're able to look at this both as on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, comparisons for the past 7 days, 30 days, 60 days, or year over year. So I'm going to show you the year over year view here, because this is really where you want to see how you're doing compared to previous years. This will take just a second here. Let's select something here. Now let me go to year over year. It's not coming up.
While that's loading, I just want to reiterate, we had a conversation yesterday, and just for our clients and even our VRM staff, LSI has worked painstakingly to make sure that your descriptors, whether something is oceanside, oceanfront, pool view, ocean view, all of these kind of descriptor categories, that they filter into the segments that LSI has built out for you. And Scott alluded to that earlier when we talked about, just the standardization. Our industry doesn't quite have all that standardized. Perhaps we should work a little bit harder at that, but every market is unique, each company is unique, and they have worked really, really hard to make sure that when your data is getting pulled over into their system, that it's matching up into the appropriate categories. I know Scott told me the community pool would be one example. There might be 12 different ways of saying community pool. And I don't even know if I'm creative enough to come up with saying it 12 different ways, but there is. Each of you is going to use that terminology a little bit differently.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that topic up, and we're going to spend Julie's going to spend a little time toward the end talking about that. What I wanted to show you here is a metric here, and to show you what happens as you start sorting this by bedrooms and amenities. So you can see for the entire inventory, the average revenue per paid unit, that's per reservation, is $37.93.60. And we start adding filters into this, we're going to see some significant changes. We're going to be able to sort that by all these different categories. So we're looking at 6 bedrooms at $40.47. Add the 7 bedrooms to that. I'm doing that because I want to show you that you can group these things, so that if you want to do your 6, 7, 8 bedrooms, 5 bedroom, or 1 and 2s, you can group them however. But when you add the 7 bedrooms, you're up to 46. When you add oceanfront, let's see what happens there. Okay, so the average of those for these weeks in the dating period was 6,600. Let's take a look at an individual week. Let's look at 7/26 just to see. So their rate during that week for their properties, and they had 42 units that fit the 6, 7 bedroom oceanfront category, was $79.23. Let's add a private pool to it and see what that does. All right, so we were at 79, and they are on that week of 7/26, and they're averaging a little over $800 more having the pool in there. So that pool looks like that's pretty valuable, worth doing. These homes are probably getting 20 some weeks a year. So if they're getting $800 per week, that's a $16,000 or so return on that investment. They've got some cost, but that's an investment, a capital improvement that amortizes quite quickly. So when you're counseling your owners, you can show them these real numbers here and say, well, what happens if you added a pool? Or let's take a look at what happens if you make it pet friendly. So for that week there, 726, at making it pet friendly, is at 10,150. I think before if I were to take that off, I wrote this number down before. It was at 872, 8721. So people were willing to pay $1,429 extra besides the pet fee that they're paying on that house for this one additional feature here, pet friendly. And when you look at all these amenities that you can add here, and you look at which one has the greatest return on investment, pet friendly by far. Most of you probably already know this. The best way to jumpstart a property is to make it pet friendly, but here's how you can show that directly to a homeowner, because you've got hard numbers to prove it, not just from your own inventory, but from the entire inventory in your market. In this case, people renting these 6-7 bedroom ocean fronts were willing to pay an extra $1,429 in rent, excluding a pet fee that they're all collecting as well. And the owner really didn't have to put much in capital improvements there to make that home pet friendly. Let's take a look at one other factor here too, since I found this a little interesting. Let's see what putting an elevator in the home. You have someone in more and more groups, as our population is aging, require handicap accessible homes. So that same week, 726, they were willing to pay $999. The interesting thing is that that's a $1,200 difference. When they added a pet, they were actually willing to pay $1,429 extra for that week. They were willing to pay $200 more a week to bring their pet than they were to bring their disabled relative to a home. And the elevator put in that home probably costs in the range of $25,000 to $30,000. And again, pet friendly, almost no investment. So when you look at this, it's not just for setting rates. It's really for strategically advising your homeowners what's the best configuration to offer in their home. And so there's some really, you can play around with all of these things. We have a really extensive menu for the VRM market insights of amenities and locations and that. And so you can really give solid information to your owners when they're considering making changes in their homes. Let's see. Want to look at another real quick metric here, and this is geographic information. This is one of my favorite features of this. I'm not going to change the filter sets here so that we don't have to wait while that adjusts. So we were looking at 6 and 7 bedroom pool, oceanfront homes, private pool with an elevator here. And we can see where the reservations come on this color coded map here. And when you float over them, it shows you the areas. But what we actually do is break those down by zip code in these tables so that you can see people renting that category of home. Here's the zip codes that they're coming from in order, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can also see where the local market is attracting people from the same preferences of properties there. And a lot of property managers are tempted to focus their marketing dollars on where they're doing well. They're saying, okay, this is where our people are coming from. This is where we're going to focus our marketing efforts, particularly for these upper end homes. But what I prefer to do is I try to go and look at where the local market's outperforming me. And you can see here where you're number 51 in drawing people to your properties in this category. The number one area for the local market is Greensburg, Pennsylvania. I'm not sure where Greensburg, Pennsylvania is, but I would say let's focus on that. Let's focus on where the local market is number 2 and you're number 25 right here, or actually 24 right there. But that really gives you a sense of where you can put your marketing dollars, particularly in those areas like social advertising, where you can do it by demographics and you can do it by zip codes, and you can cross-reference this information here with the U.S. Bureau of Statistics and see what the average household income is and what the density of that population base is, and really make some good marketing decisions there and how to best use your dollars. We also show that this sorts it by zip codes. We show that by metropolitan areas as well. Adjusting there. I'm going to go actually to the booking tab here real quickly. So that was the previous one was showing that by where the revenue was coming from. This is showing it where the number of bookings are coming from, and again ranks those all by zip codes there. Okay, we are coming close to our timeline, and we had a couple other things here that we wanted to spend a little bit of time with, and I'm going to go back to something we discussed a little earlier, and that's mapping, and Julie's going to talk to you about it, but I'm going to explain to you why that's one of the most difficult challenges of putting together a data project like that. And that is, again, because we really don't have any conformity in our industry and what we call things. Somebody might call a home a semi-oceanfront. Someone else may call that a one back or a first row. We've had people call them almost ocean fronts. And I use the example of the media room, theater, game room, all being lumped under the same, meaning the same thing by different companies. And they're all located in different fields within the PMS system. So being able to map these things so that we're pulling your data correctly and you're getting apples to apples comparisons is one of the biggest challenges we've had. What we have done is spent a good deal of time, as Tracy said, predetermining what these are by going through studying what those names are and automatically importing them to the right fields here. But there are some things that we're just not able to do, and Julie's going to talk to you a bit about that.
Okay, first you're saying, oh, where do we do this mapping? And where we do this mapping is underneath the menu over on your left-hand side of your screen. You're going to go under Company. Under Company, there's going to be a screen called Data Mapping. And on the data mapping screen, you're going to see all the fields that we have mapped. Over on the right-hand side is going to be a list of fields that come from VRM. In order for this to work, we need to take these fields and we need to map them into the fields that we need for the reporting. Oh, sorry. So what's going to happen here is a lot of this is going to be automated already. We've worked with developers and the developer, and we've gotten it to where your pet-friendly homes will all be automatically mapped. If you want to adjust anything, you would just hit the edit field button, and what's going to happen is the screen's going to come up, and we're going to be able to select the drop down and select all the pet-friendly items that are underneath each home. Sometimes people have amenities checked off in different areas in the system. So you might have more than one that will come in. For example, your private pool. You'll notice that we have 2 private pools. One is under private pool, and then one is under seasonal heated pool. And it's a feature. So we want to make sure that we capture both. We have worked on automating that so you wouldn't have to worry about that. The thing that you're going to have to look at is going to be your location. When you come to the mapping screen, you may have to come in and edit your location. What you're going to do is you're going to hit this edit field, and it's going to bring up a field, and you're going to be able to pull in. For instance, this one says unit data area. Some people are showing their field under location, but for this client, they have their items under area. So it all depends on how you pull it in. And then once you select that, then you will be able to select which one is a value for it. So like your oceanfront, you would select oceanfront. We have several categories that you can select from, so you'll be able to do that when you do your mapping. So we need to make sure that once you are signed on and in the system, that the mapping screen is looked at and you make adjustments that are needed. We're here to help you get that done, and you can check with your VRM support group, and they will be able to assist you if you have any questions on that. One last thing that we're going to touch base that Scott's going to talk about is under company and then daily snapshots is going to be a report that can be emailed to you every day to take a sneak peek at what's going on in your company. And what it's going to look like is this, and Scott will explain how it looks.
So every day in your mailbox or your inbox, once you're enrolled in this, you're going to get an email that's basically an executive summary that's going to go through and give you a summary of your reservations the previous day, the past week, the past month, past year, and the revenue associated with those, so that you will, at a glance, in just a couple of minutes, be able to really have a sense of how you're doing. And I've used a tool very similar to this, managing a couple of companies. It was the first thing I looked at every day because it really helped me keep my finger on the pulse of the business, know how we were doing, because I looked at the day before. If the performance was off from the previous day, I knew it immediately. If we weren't meeting our goals, I knew it immediately. I was able to spot trouble areas immediately. This will fall in your inbox. You'll get used to using it, and literally in a couple of minutes every single day, you'll really be able to give you a good yourself a good feel of how your company is doing. We're close to our time limit now, but what I would like to share with you as well, at first glance, some of this may look complicated. It isn't complicated at all. When you get into VRM Market Insights and start playing around for a half an hour, it's going to become intuitive immediately, and you're going to start to see the value of it. We're also going to be here to support you. We're going to do deeper dives into more advanced features of VRM Market Insights, talk to you about interpretation, suggested strategic actions that you can do from the data you're seeing. We're going to do these on a regular basis. They'll all be recorded and archived so that you can use that. I think you're going to find this to be a really valuable tool to use, and thanks to VRM for bringing this to all of their all of their clients, and especially at no cost here. It's just amazing that they would be the first in the vacation rental industry to offer this to their entire client base at no charge.
Well, thank you so much. I know we are so excited about our clients getting a hold of this, but not just getting a hold of it, but actually using it. So the ongoing educational opportunities is fantastic. And one thing that Scott did not say is I want you guys to stay tuned, because this is actually only part one of a two-part present. So like, well, he alluded to it earlier on. I take that back, he did. So later on, I would say definitely within the next month or two, we're going to be introducing another data tool that's coming from LSI, specifically for our VRM clients, again, free of charge. So just to recap for everybody listening, and Scott, Julie, if I say something wrong, jump in and tell me. So number one, this tool is absolutely free for all VRM clients.
Absolutely.
It's really simple to sign up. All you have to do is go to the admin console, go down to the bottom analytics, click market insights, and then just follow the steps. Once your data is pulled over, you will be able to go in and take a look. It'll look just like what we looked at today, but it'll be your data. And then don't forget 2 pieces of homework. Once you have signed up, you're going to want to go into 2 areas. One is that mapping area, and make sure specifically that you're looking at those, Julie, I may say it wrong, I made a note, but I flipped my page over. Under mapping,
Locations,
and make sure that those locations are set up properly for your properties. And that's really important. And just look around, get familiar with that, especially as you're adding new properties, taking properties away. That way you make sure that they fall in the right categories. And then your other piece of homework is that you're going to be going into under company category to that company snapshot into daily snapshot. And that's where you're going to be able to put in an email address so that every day in your inbox, the right person in your company is going to get that snapshot / executive summary, because that is what's going to give you every day habitually to look at your data and understand it, to be able to make smart decisions about your business and really drive it to the next level. And I have one last question for Scott before we close. Scott, on a scale to 1 to 10, having been a property manager, using reports like the daily snapshot, how important is that on a scale from 1 to 10?
I think it's the most important thing you can do to keep your team on the same page. We didn't distribute that email. We've alluded to another tool that we're bringing here that really breaks that down even further on the daily snapshot, that the one we're introducing here in just a few weeks. But I woke up every single morning, and everybody on my management team did the same thing, and it was the first thing that we looked at. I looked at it before I got in the truck and drove to work. I wanted to know how we had done the previous day, and because the distribution was pretty wide, we had everybody in the management team, from reservation staff to maintenance to marketing. We all knew how we were doing, and we expected everybody else to know how, on the team, to know how we were doing. We shared that information readily with our staff, and it became part of the company culture. But I would say, the one thing that we could say is that we were informed about what we were doing all the time.
Very good. So this was such a great way to take an analysis, a checkup of your company, find out where you are, where you've been, and where you're headed. So Scott and Julie, thank you so much for bringing us this. Thank you to your developers, your entire team, and even to the VRM dev team. We're just so thankful. And just on behalf of the clients, I say thank you, because I'm excited to see how we can dig in, and even how my own team and the marketing team, because we run pay-per-click advertising campaigns. So I can't wait for us to use some of this data to work on pay-per-click campaigns. I mean, there's so much good information. Like the screen says, if you go through any of these steps and you run into any problems, you your first step is to reach out to the old trusty help desk, help@vrmgr.com. Our team is going to work closely with LSI to bring you the support that you need. But we're going to be learning that system again as we go, so we can answer those questions for you on an ongoing basis. But as Julie said, she's there to help with the mapping. Any other support issues we have, we're going to be leaning on them heavily, but because we're a team. LSI, they're our good, close friends, but they're also our partners in this business. And we're very excited to continue to bring you excellence and customer service and in your tools. So we're going to wrap it up for today. Thanks everyone for being with us today on VRM Insider, and we look forward to seeing you next month in February. Until then, take care and bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.